What's up, guys? Josiah here at theeasykaters.com, and I'm today just wanted to do quarters volume, relative volume signals on Thinkorswim. And so if you see over here, what I have is all these different time frames showing relative volume signals on the current bar or the previous bar. And so I can look at a watch list of stocks and immediately sort it by, okay, does the quarterly chart, does it have any signals? Does the monthly chart have any signals? Does the weekly? Does the daily? Hourly? And so forth. So I can bring the high volume bars or high volume per range bars to the top of my list here by sorting with the quarterly signal column. And so I just wanted to go through and review some of those and see if there were any setups that maybe we could look to swing trade in the coming weeks and months, or even longer term than that, maybe long-term buy and hold type of setups. Now, personally, I'm mostly a day trader right now, but I am looking to expand and kind of get into swing trading a little bit, and also see how relative volume can apply on longer-term holds. Can point out areas where we can kind of start acquiring shares to hold for a long time, and that we can hold for dividends and that kind of thing, to tell you where those ideal prices are to start acquiring or accumulating shares. And hopefully this will be a benefit to some of you longer term traders as well as the shorter term swing traders, because I think the best swing trades actually come from longer time frame setups, because the longer time frame setups are going to lead to bigger moves that the swing traders can take advantage of. So anyway, so on this quarterly chart, I'm going to start at the top of my list here. I've got BMY, Bistermeyer Squid. It had a high churn volume bar last quarter. Now this was because it was breaking through this range down here at the bottom of this range, and longer term buyers that were looking at this, this level and saying, okay, this is a good level to be buying at, and expecting it to hold as a support level. People started coming in and buying it up there. Now, this is not a really ideal setup for me, because like what I typically will look for is something more like this one here, where we've got this uptrend. We've got a sell-off happen, a pullback, and at the bottom of that pullback we have a churn bar up here. And so this, this is off the high that's up here. It's pulled back, and near the lows down here we've got this churn bar that's put in. And so that's what I look for on a pullback. I want to see churn happening at the very base of that pullback, and that can indicate a good pullback that is being absorbed. The pullback is being absorbed by the buyers stepping up the bids. And so that's the kind of thing I look for. This may work, but this is not ready to go yet. What I would look for is, so this is on a quarterly chart. What I would look for is on the monthly level, the monthly time frame or the weekly time frame. For if this level can hold, we'll probably get some bouncing around going on in here on the monthly and weekly, and then maybe we can get a signal on that monthly chart, and get some context that way, whether or not we're going to go up or down. But right now I don't think that's ready to go. Here is Pfizer. Similar situation on that prior one. You can see here, this is a really nice setup here that happened. We had an uptrend happening, pullback, churn bar near the low, off the highs of that pullback, and that led to a nice run up to 4 R's, it looks like. So about 4 times your risk. Yeah, so right there was 4 times your risk, and it definitely got your 2R target, so that was good. And this was another entry here. We that would have paid really well. We had this break above the high of this range, pulled back, put in churn. People were stepping up and buying that sell-off, and it broke through and went really well. So now we're pulling back again. And so what I do like this bar here that's off the highs. It's a churn bar. I don't know if this is going to hold this quarter. So this quarter is still forming, and so what I would do again is kind of look at that lower time frame. And so in the context of this higher time frame setup, this pullback that's happening, do we get our kind of setup? I want to look for that high risk to reward or good risk to reward setup inside of this pullback. And I want to find a churn signal to tell me that it's time to enter. And so I don't think this one is 100% ready to go yet, but this is a good one to keep an eye on as this quarter forms. If we get a good monthly signal here, a narrow bar, maybe even on the weekly chart, if we can get a churn bar next week or something like that, indicating that, yes, this level is being absorbed, maybe right here where we're testing this high pivot. That might be a good signal. If we can put in a churn bar next week, that might be a good place to start thinking about taking a long back up to these highs and possibly beyond. So Pfizer looking good, perhaps for, if it can give us a bar next week, or maybe this month can hold its own level, then that might be something we can trade coming up here. So keep an eye on Pfizer. CVS, let's see what we got here. So this one, nice uptrend. So we're coming back down, and so we put in a churn bar last quarter, and we're currently putting in some churn on this quarter. We're trying to see if this level is going to hold. There's not really much of a level here except for the $50 kind of figure. I don't really see much else going on at this level. We had a base that happened here and a base that happened here, but it's not really testing any of that right now. So I'm not really sure that I see anything to do here other than just kind of wait and keep an eye on this one. I think it needs some time to develop into a broader range here on these lower time frames, so we can get a more clear signal on the quarterly. So here is ABBV. This one has not really got a lot of history going on, and then we don't really have a good strong signal last month either. So that's about it on the red candles for last quarter. Let's see about what we have on the green side. Let me zoom in here. So QCOM, obviously it's been in the news a lot with this move that it's recently done. And this had an excellent signal right here. We had this, range that kind of developed, kind of ping-ponging back and forth here. And we were down at the bottom of this range. We put in a churn bar with a bottoming tail. That was a nice little setup to buy on the break above that this quarter. And it went straight to 2 Rs in just a week's time. So that was a really nice trade. And basically on this weekly chart, you can see you would have basically been buying above this level right here. You could put a stop under the low of the quarterly chart, or you could even have taken it on the weekly and get an excellent risk to reward setup right there on the weekly chart, which went to, it looks like 8 Rs right there, 8 times your risk. So that one was a really nice trade that unfortunately I can't say that I took. Right now, like I said, I'm mostly a day trader looking to get into more swing type trades and so forth. And so, but this kind of can show you the power of these relative volume signals. And you can even see, prior signals on your chart here where we had this sell-off, absorbed, put in churn again, and then that one went straight to 2 Rs, possibly more, but yeah, depending on how you traded that, that one definitely got your 2 Rs out, and then put in this churn bar at the top. So that was showing that people were exiting right there. So then this developed, and then we had this new signal. So this is probably going to keep running, is my guess, but we'll see. We are up at this pivot here that happened on high churn, so we'll have to work through that before we can know for sure. Disney had some really great signals here on the quarterly. Again, we had, of course, a strong trend here. We originally had this break above this pivot level here in the range, pulled back on churn and broke above. Eventually started this new uptrend here. Got a nice inside candle there on churn. That was a good signal. Pulled back and started forming this range. This churn bar came in at the bottom of the range. That was a good signal. This one came in again at the bottom of the range. That was a good place to acquire some more shares. And then bam, look at this one here. This one was a beautiful setup as far as it working really well. This one you could have bought over the close of that bar, stop under the low, and that one would have paid really well and is still paying, it looks like. So working its way up to 4 times your risk. And let's see what else we have here. So ATVI. So this is one that hasn't yet triggered, and it's questionable what's going on here. So on the quarterly, I mean, we've definitely got a strong uptrend, but that uptrend has been really damaged by this previous bar here. So let's see here. We got a couple of signals that happened in the past here. We've got a nice 1, 2, 3 churn bar, inside bar here that would have been a good trade up to the high. We've broken all of that, coming back down and testing this area right here. So I don't think this is probably a better area to start accumulating shares than to take a one-off trade. This is saying that buyers are stepping up right here, looking at this range here, probably looking at some fundamentals. I'm not really sure. I don't know much about fundamentals. But they're probably at this point saying, okay, this is looking cheaper. This is looking like, we're at a level that makes sense to start accumulating at. So this could be a good place to start buying. And especially if we break above here, that could be good. But I would expect it to need some time to heal this kind of wound that the chart has experienced here. So I don't think this is going to be an immediate reaction necessarily. But you can see here on the monthly, we've got absorption, churn coming in on those 3 bars. And now we're just kind of hanging out in the middle of this range. So I would expect this to need a little bit more time, maybe to ping pong around here at this range, try to find a new high, and then maybe it can take off from there. But if you're really interested in ATVI, this might not be a bad time to start acquiring some shares. Got NIM, Newmont Gold Corp. Let me take off some of these lines here for one thing. I think those were left over from some day trades a long time ago. This is a setup that I really like to see, is this strong directional move and then a gradual pullback, shallow pullback with meeting some resistance, meeting some churn, And so this one would have been a good trade that way. Looks like it got probably to 4 Rs depending on how you traded it. 2 Rs perhaps. And then, so this is not developed into a new uptrend yet, but we've got a new churn bar happening here. This one, I honestly don't think this is that bullish. We've broken down below this range here, and I think this is more like just a range type of signal saying, okay, we've probably got some supply up in this area that we've hit, and we're probably going to test back down a little bit lower. But it really can do anything. A lot of times these churn bars can indicate a entry in whatever direction they break in. Sometimes they are good to be taken in either direction if they break outside of that range, and because that's essentially saying there's a battle being fought within this candle, and whatever side it resolves itself on, that side, it can be, at least in some circumstances, can be a good buy to make. But I don't see anything that's super compelling there that I would want to get involved in. This one, you can see here, this one would have been something a little bit better to take because we were in this uptrend. You can see we had a nice signal here in this uptrend. We had a pullback off the highs, churn bar put in at the low of the pullback, and then triggered long. And that one worked really well. Then we had an inside kind of like 1, 2, 3 bar there. And that one probably would have paid depending on how you sized your stop. So that one would have worked for 2 Rs. This one that we had last quarter is working. It looks like it could have gotten to our target just barely, depending on how you size your stop. If you stop it under the tail, then it's only about to 1 time your risk, but stopped under the open would have been about 2 times so far. But this was a good signal because it's in the context of this uptrend. It's a strong stock, and so this is one that I would be a lot more interested in trading, and would have been more interested had I had seen this at the time and been doing these types of swing trades at the time. But anyway, so that's something to keep an eye on right there. If you get any type of opportunity to get into this in the context of this overall trend, that's probably a good thing to look for. Let's see here. You know, on the monthly, it had those 2 churn bars there before breaking. The weekly, we had a lot of churn down here in this bottoming tail candle, so that would have been the absolute ideal place to buy. But yeah, so timing wise, on the break above this area here, that would have been good. Let's see, AMRN. We had this kind of 1, 2, 3 setup going on here on the quarterly, and so it got to 1 times your risk, and we're waiting to kind of see if it's going to make it to 2 times, 2 Rs. But this is something I definitely look for on these 1, 2, 3s: a strong directional move, churn on the pullback, and then a continuation. It wasn't able to break above the high, so I don't really like that, but it may continue and be able to do that in the near future, so that's something to keep an eye on. It is pulling back to the original entry point here, so it might be possible to get in on that if you're interested. MPC. This looks better on the monthly chart than anything. Got this kind of gradual uptrend, pullback, churn at the low of this pullback against the high of this prior range, where we broke out over here before. So this is actually a pretty good setup. I would prefer to see a little bit of a test below the low of this candle before we break out above it, and maybe a better, more attractive entry here, such as if this high holds as the high of this candle, this quarterly candle, and we test below it and then kind of close somewhere in between here, that could be a good signal to take along there, especially if this ends up being more churn. And you can see the monthly chart here, it has already triggered. We have this pullback. This is the second leg of a kind of a, it's looking like it's going to be a double bottom here, you know, 1 bottom, 2 bottom. And then if we can break above this range here, that would be a good signal to go long. And this churn bar has already triggered, so this one, we've yet to see if this is going to hold and if it's going to work. But that looks like a pretty good signal. So keep an eye on MPC, Marathon. This one is not looking very interesting. It's not very compelling volume signal on the quarterly, and the context is not great. Here's Gilead. Got some churn that came in last quarter. It looks like people are trying to support it here. Some buyers are coming in, but we have yet to see if that's going to hold. To me, it looks a little bit more bearish at this point. So we've held this level for a little while, tried to break out above, put in churn, so that was resistance to me. To me, that looks like a resistance bar. We broke below that, and so that says to me that it's kind of bearish at this point. I don't know if that, you know, nobody knows the future. Don't believe anybody that says they do, but that is what, that's kind of one thing that I would look for. So like I said, whichever direction this kind of breaks in can indicate that the battle has been fought and won, and the side that won was the bearish side. And so if we break below this one again, that looks like another bearish entry to me. Nothing there. That looks like most of the good signals. There's Alcoa AA. I saw this one earlier. Now we're down here at the low of this base area. Last quarter we put in some churn there saying, okay, there's some volume picking up, absorbing this sell-off. And so we have, this could trigger and go lower, but we're at the low of this base here. And so I don't know that I would trade that on the bearish side. I would look for a long potential here, or the potential to accumulate some shares at least. So that's how I would read that one. We're in a location that is at the low of a range, and so if we can trigger back above that, that looks bullish to me. So we've got an uptrend here, churn bar last quarter. I don't really see, this is not an ideal kind of candle to see. We had, so on the monthly, this is looking a little more bearish in nature. Let's see if we can get a better story or better picture with anything else here on the daily or weekly. I don't really see a good, any kind of good giveaway of what's going on here. So that one, that one's not really abundantly obvious. We had this move up, had some resistance, pulled back, put in a churn bar that broke up and went to 2 Rs, and then we got this pullback that happened. A little bit of churn came in to support it at the high of this original breakout area, and then we bounced up, but it looks like we're hitting some more resistance here at the high here and at the high here. So this is not looking as bullish to me, so that's something that I would probably look at selling potentially and just waiting for a clearer signal. COP. So this one, we have kind of a similar bar here on the quarterly, but it looks a little bit better here. Let's see what we got. Yeah, so this is something that I kind of like to see, and what I'm seeing here is that, okay, we've got a bullish move, we're pulling back, churn comes in at the low area of this pullback, and you can see here we've come back and retested the breakout of this pattern that happened previously. We're coming back to that same level and testing that, and so people have stepped up, and then we come up to the high here. Now this can resolve in either direction, but what I like to see here is that we've moved up and we're pulling back on the high churn and not getting much of anywhere. So if this month's candle can close similar to this, especially inside the range of this prior candle, a break above this would look really good to me. You got 2 Rs up to the high, so you can get 2 times your risk before you even have to take out the high of this pivot, and then potentially move on upward to the prior high over here and get 4 Rs. So that looks like a pretty attractive setup to me. So that's another one to keep an eye on, is this ConocoPhillips COP. WLL, seeing a monthly signal there, not much of a, we're just at the really low end of a base, and things are not looking really exciting on this chart, but we are at the low of the base where people are coming in and saying, no, we don't need to go any lower than 20 bucks. So we've got people absorbed it here, they absorb it here, absorb it here, and again, we're kind of seeing the same exact thing. So a break above this would probably be good back up to the high here at least. Not super exciting, but at least it's it's something that will probably give you a little bit of a profit. And so, yeah, on a break above this red, I would probably think that would at least retest this area up here. So that's something to look at as well, WLL. And it looks like we got one more here, Viacom. A little bit of churn here, not much. And the context is not that great either. But it looks like we do have some potential, support coming in here, trying to buy up anything. It's getting harder for it to sell off, it looks like, and it's getting absorbed. So I don't know. I don't see a lot to do here, so I don't know that there's a trade to take at this point. But if we get above this range, or maybe above this particular monthly candle, then that might be a little bit more interesting on a pullback on a smaller time frame. Anyway, so that's the signals I'm seeing right now on the quarterly chart. We'll probably do another one on monthly, weekly, and so forth. I just want to review these, and so there are a few trade ideas in there, and hopefully that will help some people that want some perspective from the relative volume side of things. This tells you, what bigger buyers are doing, and can give you the context to explore some trades, using your own system and so forth, can give you an extra boost of confidence for an entry and that kind of thing. That's the way I see these. I like to look at the overall context of the trade and then look at the volume signal and see what it might be saying. And so that's how I use this, and hopefully you'll find some value in that. Till next time.